And then let me welcome you to Chicago. I do live here, and it's always good to have people come visit our fair city, and hopefully the Cubs will win a game tonight while you're here. But they're still about 20 over 500, which is a wonderful thing to have. And if you see all the blue, that's why. Second, and lastly, let me thank Marla and Ann and the people for having us on the panel. We're going to discuss the mobilization. And I divide mobilization into two things. One is the mobile point of sale system, and the other one is the mobile wallet. The point of sale system, I think you probably all know, is when you walk into the store and someone's walking around with a tablet or an iPhone or even a Square device attached to an iPhone. They just take your card instead of standing in one place at a checkout register. The wallet, I have my iPhone here. Samsung tells me it'll be a few days or weeks, but we're gonna have our Samsung Pay, Google Pay, MCX in a few months, maybe, and everything else. So that's mobilization. And that said, I don't think you guys are here to hear me. I'm going to let Michael, George, and Ray introduce themselves, and then we'll begin asking some questions. And you guys are more than welcome to raise your hand and ask any questions you'd like, even how you think the White Sox are doing. So, so Michael, since you're closest to me, why don't you start?
Sure. Can everybody hear me? Working, test. I'm Michael Hebert, work with Mobilizing Software. I'm based in Austin, though I actually live in LA. Nice to be back in the Midwest. Grew up just across the lake. Michigander at heart, always will be. So yeah, it's nice to be back. Thank you for having me. Mobilizing Software is a software developer for banks and credit unions, community financial institutions, helping them deliver into the digital channel, both their consumers and their businesses. So I'm going to hopefully share my perspective, at least from the bank's perspective, what they're looking for in payments.
George Finley, Crate & Barrel. I've been with Crate & Barrel for about 14 years now, doing retail technology systems for close to 30. A large part of that.
It's hard to hear you.
Sorry. Is that better? There we go. Been doing retail systems development for about 30 years. A large part of that has been payment systems, in-house payment switches, payment technology in the stores. We have spent the last, 6 or 9 months rolling out mobile tablets and payment devices to the stores, learning a lot along the way, and with a lot of plans ahead of us, so maybe I can bring a retailer's perspective.
So my name is Ray Pacinley. I'm one of the founders of Total Apps. We're a payment processor, but we're also a payment tech company specializing in wallets, specifically for social commerce applications. We're looking at ways to monetize and enable commerce directly inside of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. And so we're focusing primarily on the cutting edge stuff that we call Web 3.0, aka social commerce.
Cool, let me begin, and this isn't on your prep sheet, so my apologies, but simple question to get everyone going. For mobile wallets, when do you guys think this will be common? And then 53 billion will be more like hundreds of billions of dollars, and I'm going to reach for that instead of my $20 bill. How long do you think that's going to take to happen?
Well, I mean, to the latest statistics that I've read, mobile commerce is going to supersede traditional payments by about 2017. So they're estimating that 50% of commerce will occur on a tablet or mobile device of some sort. So that's going to drive adoption of the wallets by the consumer. That's the biggest hurdle, getting consumers to figure out that, hey, a wallet is more convenient or has more features or is safer than whipping out my plastic that's easily within reach of my pocket. So in the previous slides we saw, typically 2019 is going to take 4 to 5 years for the mass adoption to happen.
George, do you have a view on that? Or Michael?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The timeline, I think Apple has brought wallet or wallet type behavior to the masses. And I know in the last year there's been an exponential amount of chatter around mobile payments and specifically wallets within my customer base and my peer group. So I think we're on our way now. We have tried for the last 4 or 5 years to try to get mobile wallet adopted. We participated in some big name experiments that just didn't go anywhere. And so I think I view Apple Pay as a tipping point, and I think now that Android's coming online, it's just going to push it even harder.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I mean, not much more to add, other than I think financial institutions should feel empowered to help the small businesses with the technology needed to accept those payments. And once they do, I think it's just going to skyrocket.
And actually, I was guessing else, but I'll begin with how. Do the financial institutions help, and what do they do?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, honestly.
Well, do you think things like credit, approval, bringing the cards easier to the mobile device, are those all things that the financial institution can help with?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's tools in there now. I mean, part of the native device, as well as, card issuing companies can advance in their technologies to bring it mobile as well.
Okay. And then the banks will work with the card issuing companies and help build it up from there?
Absolutely.
Cool. The next question actually was going to be, I was at a panel about a month ago here in this building, and the question came up for the 50th time in the last 10 years at a panel I was at, what's going to get the consumer to adopt? And I think we'll hear a lot of people address that, unfortunately still. But what, gentlemen, gets me to do that instead of throwing a 20 at Al, which I've already done 5 times today? What's going to make me adopt and use my Apple Pay or use my Samsung Pay? Right, please?
Well, it's really about what is the benefit to the consumer. We are seeing all these different emerging technologies and all these different people deploying solutions out to the marketplace. But it still doesn't supplant the ease of me reaching into my pocket, getting a credit card out, and swiping it through the machine. So the challenge is providing intrinsic value into that process that will allow that consumer to have a better shopping experience. For example, loyalty and rewards is one part of the solution. Being able to say, hey, buy 9 Starbucks cups and get a 10th one free, or in my case, 72 Chipotles and get the 80th one free. But it's not just loyalty and rewards, but there's also gamification, there's geo-fencing. So if I drive by or if I walk by a certain retailer, I'm incentivized to come into that store and to claim my 2-for-1 special free drinks or 10% off coupon at the time that I am interested. And so it's the ability to engage with those customers in a real-time basis that's going to cause those customers to want to use those mobile wallets because they're going to continue to enjoy reaping the rewards of that technology.
George or Michael, do you have any view on that?
Yeah, I think lowering barriers, doing away with barriers is really important. Education, Apple Pay, again, back to Apple Pay, is a lot of awareness has come because of Apple Pay. I'm really curious to see how wearables in the future will affect this. Is it going to become as easy as using Uber to walk into a store and just hold your wrist up to a payment device, or maybe walking out the store, do it that way? And we're still trying to figure out how to use a tablet with a payment device, let alone moving on to something like wearables. But I think lowering the barriers to adoption is really key, and that's in a large part education, an educational challenge.
Yeah, I would agree. Just want to add a bit to Ray's statement, in that it's absolutely about getting that consumer more comfortable and rewarding them with that use of the mobile device. I think that the financial institutions can certainly support in that role, giving them the mobile technology to do that, but also empowering, again, the small businesses by helping them build stronger relationships. So bringing that technology not only to the consumer, but also to that small business to be able to help them market into that technology, promoting those coupons and such, directly to the consumer as a mutual customer of the financial institution.
So no, actually, Nick mentioned Starbucks earlier, and one of our speakers later today or tomorrow is going to talk about the one step. Starbucks is right there. You're directly connected to Starbucks. I use Dunkin' Donuts, not Starbucks. I go, bam, it's done. Whereas in a wallet like Apple Pay or MCX, when Apple Pay just signed a loyalty partner this morning, it was in my news, you have another step in there. And with the bank and getting a bank reward, it's at least 1 or 2 steps. Do you see that as being a big differentiator and the need to go to one step and just direct contact and figure out that issue for loyalty or coupons or whatever? And how do you go about that? And will it help? I guess that's 3 questions in one. It's almost a strikeout.
An interesting case study is we have a client that we had worked with to set up as a wallet and an aggregator. And they basically partnered with the 4 major issuing banks in Chile. So when you open your bank account in Chile through one of these debit card issuers, you actually get the mobile app installed at the branch. They add and tokenize your credit card on the spot, and that experience is seamless from day one for the customer. So American banks are, let's say, not technology companies, and so for them to come to market with solutions is probably not going to be the most likely scenario. And it's ultimately going to have to be the technologists that are able to solve those problems, and it's really about the user experience and simplifying it. Until that happens, it's just going to be an uphill slug.
Guys, any further views on
No,
that?
again, Ray, thanks for starting each conversation out. 100% agree. You're making my job very easy. Yeah, I think software companies such as LSI, not to plug us, but need to help empower those financial institutions, especially the community financial institutions, to help compete with the bigger banks and wholesalers that are offering cards and payment tools.
Let me ask you, and someone mentioned beacons a little while ago and things like that. Everyone said big data 2 years ago. It's a phrase that's now passé, I think. To what degree and what data does matter? And what George, especially for Crate and Barrel, what matters for you guys and what do you see coming?
Yeah, well, I think what matters for us is being able to identify the customer. A large part of our transaction set is still anonymous. They come in with the card, they swipe it, and we have the number, and then we have to work. It's a lot of effort to try and identify that customer and then blend them into our marketing platform to make use of that. So that's always the challenge. I think the big opportunity right now with alternative payments and wallets and things like that is to start capturing emails, and that's a huge leap for us to be able to get the email.
It's kind of going to the old systems with the new ones.
Yeah, I mean, what's old is new, right?
Yeah. Then, please, Ray, did you have a comment?
Well, I mean, as a case in point, there's a lot of traditional businesses that have never gotten that customer data. And so we're right now working with Universal Music. Universal Music is, for lack of a better description, a dinosaur. The music industry has been evolving and disrupting for years. And so we're working with them to create Twitter payments. And the unique thing about this process, and the thing that excited them the most, is that through our process, we're able to provide the artist the name, phone number, email, Twitter handle, and home address of every single music fan. That's completely out of the realm of what was possible a few years ago. So one of the things that we see really happening is a convergence of marketing and payments, because that big data is really going to be a differentiator of the people who are successful and able to retain those relationships and build long-term value with their customer base. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you can re-engage with those customers through either social media or electronic communications.
Are there privacy/security concerns that go with that, or are those reasonably well handled pending further government intervention?
Well, I mean, privacy and security is always the first question that gets asked, but it's become so baked into what we do now, so ingrained that it's almost second nature. We don't dwell on that anymore. I mean, that's part of our process. It's part of what we do. So it doesn't. It's not the hard problem to solve like it used to be. Now the problem is just stay on top of it and make sure we're doing it right and continue to do it right.
And of course, the point of sale, that's the next panel, where they'll be talking about EMV, so to help with that. And a panel tomorrow that we're doing. So for social media, does the privacy, because social media is inherently public, how does that change things? And the buy buttons which are coming, and Twitter and Facebook, and Amazon?
Great question. You know, one of the surprising facts was the failure of Facebook's gifting that they did 2 years ago. Customers do not trust social media with their credit card data. Customers do not trust social media with their buying habits because they know that if they buy a friend a kitty litter box, all they're going to see is cat videos for the next 5 years on their Facebook feed. So the interesting challenge that we're seeing is that customers, you know, are inherently afraid of that privacy issue. And so being able to incorporate that by having clear statements in terms of who can access your data and not reselling the data and, you know, getting spammed by 72 different third parties that are, you know, not even relevant to what you're looking for. The biggest issue is getting customers to feel okay with their privacy and not violating that trust at all, ever, because it only takes one thing to go viral and everybody else goes, yep, I knew that was going to happen. That's why I never put my credit card into social media. So as the convergence of marketing and payments starts to happen, it's really critical that privacy is at the forefront of our customers. Otherwise, we will end up shooting ourselves in the foot, and it'll be very, very hard to recover from that.
Michael, what can we learn from your industries that will help the retailers as they deal with that?
Well, you know, bank has got certain liability around keeping transaction information secure. I think what's picked up, at least in the apps that we've developed, is the way to take that information of transactions that are posting to my own personal account and present to them some marketing opportunities, but then are local, right? Again, helping support the growth of the small business, the community, but also helping that consumer in getting more deals locally based on transactions that have been posted to my account.
Okay.
But that's my data, my own personal reward.
So it's treating the person as a person, an individual, even though you've anonymized him and
That's
things
right.
like that.
That's right.
I feel like as Larry Berlin, you guys have understood me a little bit.
Yes, that's
And
right.
they said to the crate of barrels, they sent me another red wine glass, not a white wine glass, and so on.
That's right.
I care about them, but it's still anonymous enough where I don't have to worry that Al DeBonet is going to steal from me.
Right.
So, Al's an old friend, so I'll tease him. So, rather than any other form of discrimination, the poor guy's a friend. Yeah, love it. Thanks. Let me switch a little bit to the mobile point of sale system. And before we go into the crate and barrel experience, do you guys think that when I walk into a store, and I know I can walk into Nordstrom now and see a mobile POS, and I can walk into a lot of other stores, when does that become common? I can see Square with if I had a babysitter, if I had a baby, but or a cab driver. But when do you see that coming through and the mobile POS becoming a predominant thing in stores, and what motivates that with the stores?
Well, we're right in the middle of that right now as we roll out tablets, and I think what we're discovering is that now that we can do mobile and mobile payments, that's not the answer. That's one barrier that was eliminated into really blowing up the whole selling cycle and transaction experience and finding a new way to do it. I sort of liken it to RFID years ago. The thinking was, well, we'll replace barcodes with RFID tags. Well, that buys you nothing. All it does is add cost to your environment. You have to, for RFID in that environment to be useful, you have to re-engineer the whole process. And we're still trying to figure that out. So, you know, now we have tablets with mobile payment devices on them. We still have issues like cash wrap. How do you deal with that? How do you juggle? You know, you need 3 hands, but you only have 2 to make this transaction happen. The customer doesn't want to take things. They need a place to put their stuff. So we're trying to rethink the whole purchase cycle with this new tool that enables us to get past having to walk over to a fixed place to finish. And I don't know how we're going to solve that, but we're working on it.
I understand we're going to have genetically modified human beings with 3 arms very soon, so that'll help.
I will hire the first ones.
With the cash register.
That gives them an extra hand to steal if it's cash. I just like that idea. So as we go through, I mean, And what have you guys learned in the deployment to begin with that you think comes going forwards? And how do you think as you're in the first weeks, are there changes that are apparent immediately?
Well, some things we knew were going to be challenged, adoption. A lot of our sales associates, we have two really different selling environments. One is the cash and carry transactional, the traditional housewares, hard goods, and then we have a custom furniture, which is a very long selling cycle, very personal, very professional. So different ways to approach it and different levels of adoption. The professional salespeople have been doing this for 15, 20 years, not particularly interested in changing how they do it. They feel they're very successful. So we have to overcome adoption barriers. And then again, the physical aspect. And you do not underestimate the physical aspect of it. Where do you store the things? How do you charge them? What if you need a keyboard? You've got a part of the transaction that requires a lot of data entry. You standing here doing this isn't going to cut it. So a lot of really simple things like that can be overlooked and become huge barriers when you hit them.
Okay, and then I guess moving out of the point of sale for a moment to the online world, do you see similar, I could buy something on my device, that's a huge chunk of the billions of dollars of accounting. What do you see as the major problems for getting us to buy things on our device, and actually would Crate and Barrel want us to buy things on our device?
Well, I think the holy grail is something called OmniCommerce. It's basically the combination of retail and online. So, to be able to go on a Facebook, get a deal, get a discount, have that then transfer to your mobile phone, and then being able to literally walk into the nearest store and pick up the goods that you ordered online is kind of the holy grail. The biggest challenge with that is the integration of the online with the offline, and the middleware is the POS system. I think as we migrate more towards smart payment technologies, being from the credit card industry, we're still dealing with 1980s credit card terminals that have been sitting out in the field collecting dust. So, those small merchants that are finally wisening to the value of these tablet or cloud-based POS systems will eventually be able to also combine that with their e-commerce. And so it's the unfortunate situation is that there isn't one all-inclusive solution. There isn't a one-and-done solution. So it's a combination of a hodgepodge of your payment gateway, your online shopping cart, your ERP, CRM systems, inventory control. It's a nightmare sewing and synchronizing all the gears between these systems. So until somebody creates an all-inclusive solution, it's going to be very slow adoption over the next few years.
Are there any questions out here that we could answer for you? Or are you guys going to trust me to ask questions? So that's a scary thought here. And this one is for me really, do you see a company out there that you deal with that you see as a winner? Is it a First Data or a Citibank or someone we haven't heard of, or Verifone, that you see unifying, as Ray said, for offline, online, or banking coming to this? It could be Apple.
Yeah. I'm really interested in where the handsets are going, and Samsung, I think when they come out with the Samsung Pay, when it starts to hit the market, is going to take the Apple tipping point and toss it over the edge. And again, I'm really interested in where wearables are going. Apple, I think, is pushing that envelope a little bit. They have the name, they drive adoption, and so I keep a close eye on what Apple's doing. It impacts our business a lot, I think a lot more strongly than most people realize.
Ray and Michael?
Yeah, nothing to add, sorry. Yeah.
I don't see any one company pulling it off by themselves because it's such a Herculean task. But what I do see is maybe one of the major players, a First Data, a TSYS, a Heartland, somebody of that scale and size that's going to be able to acquire the parts and eventually meld it all together. As a case in point, you have companies like Shopify that are really, really good at the online side of it. And it's not that far a stretch for them to go into the retail POS. You also have companies like Square who do really, really well with their tablet-based and cloud-based payment systems, and it's not that far a stretch for them to go online either. But nobody's accomplished it yet, and my guess is that we're going to see a big player, maybe even a Visa or a MasterCard type card brand, buy the pieces and sew it all together and then provide that unified platform. But that's a $1 billion project.
What about PayPal?
PayPal's an interesting story. You know, we've monitored and followed PayPal very, very closely. And when they exploded into the market in 2003, they were really the disruptor. They were the first service provider that enabled somebody to quickly and easily get online and start selling products, goods, and services. The problem is that PayPal over the last dozen years has really become this 800-pound gorilla to their own detriment. And they've gotten to a point where they have not innovated, they have not disrupted, they have not come out with their own technology, cutting-edge technologies. And so they're right now going public in order to get the shackles off from eBay. But more importantly is to generate the cash flow to acquire other technology companies. And as a case in point, they bought a payment gateway called Braintree. It was an $800 million acquisition. I mean, it was mind-blowing. But if you look at it from a different perspective, if they had spent the $800 million on trying to build their own competing service, it would not have worked. It would not have been as successful. So they're kind of now the dinosaur to a certain degree. And I just don't see them philosophically shifting gears to becoming that innovator and disruptor that they used to be.
Since Braintree's based here, we thank them for the $800 million, which has allowed Bill Reddy to buy tickets and charities and things like that since then, donate money to the University of Chicago. So, good thing. And I think we're running out here. Are we okay? Okay. Actually, I wanted to ask you and I told you guys on the phone, my last question of sorts, which is what in the future, I was at a conference here about 4 weeks ago, and they were talking about a future without the mobile POS. And to give you the example, I walk into Macy's, I want to buy this shirt, and I actually didn't buy it at Macy's, but so I walk into Saks, I want to buy this shirt, I scan the tag, it says whatever, $49.99 for the shirt, that'll be cheap for Saks. And then I buy a necktie, and it gets charged me $29.99. I scan the tag. Then, because they have a beacon and they have first-person data on me because they know my account, and I put it into a shopping cart like online, and they know my history. They could say, Larry Berlin only buys Calvin Klein sport coats. Why don't we buy Larry Berlin, give him 20% off if he buys a Calvin Klein sport coat today? I go over, I buy it, I'm ready to leave the store. I hit a checkout button, just like I would on the website, and boom, it's done. It deactivates the security codes so I can walk out of the store without being arrested, and it happens. Is this a Larry Berlin crazy idea of the future, or is this something that could happen somewhere down the line, and have you thought about it at all as a future? And what's it do to your environments?
Yeah, no, we think about it a lot. We talk about it every day. And we were given this challenge about a year ago to take all POS, all fixed lane POS out of the store, work towards that. We're not anywhere near that. And one of the examples that keeps being thrown out there is, well, look at Apple. You can walk into an Apple and grab something off the shelf and have somebody scan it and then walk away with it. Well, that works great for Apple. That might work for part of our business, but there's a huge part of it that doesn't. That's very personal and very high touch. I don't see that going away for us anytime soon. And even with the changing demographic, there's a certain part of our business that I think revolves around that. We talk about changing the way we check out. Maybe not doing the cash wrap right there. So you'll walk up with your list on your device, and they'll scan it and check it out, and you come back 5 minutes later, and it's all packaged up and ready to go. They're doing it in the back room. That is appealing, but a large part of our environment is, you're at the cash wrap, you're boxing it up, you're having conversations. It's really hard for us to let go of, and I don't think we're ready, and I don't think a large part of our demographic is ready for something like that. So I think getting rid of the POS is a long way off, at least for us.
Okay. Ray, any thoughts on that? Or
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with several of the points that George mentioned. Number one is that is going to depend on the type of business that you have. If you are McDonald's and most of the menu is the same over and over again, it's highly likely that you will end up in some sort of automated, almost like factory conveyor belt type system. Whereas, if you have obviously like a service type business, you'll never have anything of that sort, beauticians and spas and that kind of stuff. So it really depends on the merchant and how they engage with their customers. But most importantly, it also depends on the generation of the average age of your customer. Somebody who's a baby boomer who's dealt with face-to-face customer service people all their whole life, they're not going to switch to pushing buttons and, flipping levers. They're just not, versus a millennial who doesn't ever talk to anybody face-to-face. They will be looking for that and eagerly jump onto that opportunity when it presents itself. But there's just too diverse a marketplace for that to be ubiquitous. I just don't see that as, it doesn't serve the people, the consumers, and it doesn't serve the merchants in many applications.
We're back to my throwing the $20 bill. So, where we began the conversation. With that, I'm going to let Michael finish it off with what, as we go through these issues, what can we learn from your part of the world, again, that would help? Is it, dealing with the consumer, dealing with the security, dealing with, no POS or no teller, as the case might be?
I think regardless, the financial institutions play a role, especially on their own cards, right? Helping consumers maintain security over those cards, whether it be switching it on or off, increasing spending limits, controlling what type of transactions and where those transactions can take place. Giving the consumer the tools to be able to do that from whatever device that they're using. And then also empowering, again, the community and the small businesses in that community with a tighter relationship with the financial institution and those consumers in that area. I think the loyalty is one example, but there's a number of other ways that the financial institutions can help support that.
Cool.
And Larry, I just want to point out, we had one gentleman over here that has a question.
So I was in the cryptocurrency training yesterday. I'm just curious if Bitcoin falls on your radar at all.
Not here.
So I get asked that question a lot, and my response is, well, as soon as I get paychecks in Bitcoin, that's when I think we'll see mass adoption. But we've seen many iterations of cryptocurrencies over the years. We've seen the e-gold, the e-bullions, and all those types of things since the late 1990s. First of all, the Fed doesn't like competition, but moreover, there isn't a convenient way for somebody to get paid in Bitcoin unless you're a service provider like a webmaster. So until consumers get paychecks in Bitcoin, it's just going to be another payment factor like ACH and prepaid cards and everything else. I don't see mass adoption happening in that arena.
Cool. I also don't, from my part of the world, I get business plans periodically. You haven't gotten one in about 6 months on the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. And the valuations were huge for venture capitalists who's a normal venture capitalist and doesn't live in California and doesn't smoke their marijuana. So it makes it tougher. It could happen, but just not seeing it from our point of view here. With that, I think, unless there's any other questions? Gone. We'll offer off the pen for a question. So, Ray, George, and Michael, we just again want to thank all of you for joining us here, for joining us in Chicago, and coming on in, and hope everyone enjoys the day and learns a lot, because I'm already learning a lot. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.